Hi, my name is Soraya Kaufman. I am going to give you my presentation on inclusive leadership. I'm currently at my parents' house, so you may hear barking once in a while from the dogs, and I might be sipping my coffee as I do in my classroom. So I start off here with an article and a video, but I want to talk about what inclusive leadership is first. Inclusive leadership is including a variety of races, genders, and uh, ethnicities, etc. And the theory is that it brings in a variety of different ideas, different backgrounds, different basic prior knowledge so that you can have a different perspective to have the overall goal. In another video that I have watched that I'm not going to present here, they said that, if you have the same group of people, you're going to probably get the same outcome. That outcome may not be very bad, but say you have a room full of white males, their experiences are going to then give out their product. But if you have half women, some being Latino, some being black, some being white, and then maybe from different countries, they can give a different perspective that may have a better outcome. But I'm going to start off here. This is a YouTube video. This is from Thunderbird Management, and it's I think a very good video. I'll let you guys watch it because I'm sure I'm going to be time crunched because I'm a talker. And I'm going to give you the synapse of it. This is Beth Brooke, if you can see, and she's the Global Vice Chair. What she has is that she has three levels of inclusive leadership. It would be diversity, inclusive, and then the inclusive leadership itself. Between all three of those, there is a journey and a connection. So you have to kind of go through the diversity to get into the inclusive diversity and then into the leadership role. And they all are intertwined, but you can't just have diversity, then the leadership. You have to kind of have that go and flow together. Sometimes it's bumpy, sometimes it's smooth. Diversity is the mixture of diverse perspectives. So she's not saying diverse people, she's giving it diverse perspectives. I had talked to a friend who is a management specialist at Blue Cross Blue Shield, and sometimes they can't have a huge ethnic group, or it's mainly one population of people, and they're specifically trained. So though you want to have that background, you still want to be able to have the right qualifications. So you can't just get somebody who's a teacher and then just do software development just because you want to have it diverse. But you want to have a mixture of those diverse perspectives. But in that, and throughout the whole course, what you said is that you have to value those. You might have that, but if you don't value what they bring onto the table, you can't have their input. You can't see what they feel or how they act or what they can bring if you don't value them as a person. And so you have to have those perspectives as well too, and show that the people that you do care and that you do value them. However, being inclusive is making that mix work, thus being the dynamics of the group, dynamics of the team, dynamics of the classroom. And I've been teaching a while that if you have one little bad bird, it can mess up the flow of the whole classroom. And so trying to get those to work, valuing what that child or that team member, even though they may be disruptive, what they can bring to make the class better, to make the class more interesting, and for them to learn. If you value those inclusive natures, then therefore they would be able to have better outcomes. So if you reach to the kid with that different perspective of why do we want to do this and explain that to them, then they can help the rest of the class and become then the leader themselves. Inclusive leadership is a leader who respects the diversity. I feel like I'm kind of that way because I do teach at a urban school. I've worked at rural schools. One of the reasons I like working at urban schools is the diversity. I get to see kids, they get to challenge me every day. And I think I've become a much better person for that. And I value it because I get to say, hey, you know, especially to a kid that is Hispanic ethnicity, what does grandma do? Where my grandma was much more different, you know, working in being in a small town, America town. And so I like to hear those perspectives, and I like to, it kind of makes me value my students more, and I think it makes them value themselves. Um, and I feel like, and expressing the passion, but I'll talk about that later on in the slide. And you have to lead the group, but you have to lead the group to say that there are going to be people different. Um, and I think that was very important for me when I was working in a rural setting of showing that differences, because when they get into the real world, they will have people, if they, especially when they level up and they go to a different city, they will have people that do have a different background, have a different gender, do have a different race, and experience different things. And then as a teacher, you also, for me, this is what I'm kind of thinking it as, you have to manage that friction. Sometimes kids are just having a bad day and they have to be just let go and just kind of let their own thing. Sometimes kids don't get along, and then the next day, ooh, they're best friends and they're sharing Pop Tarts. So, but I think that has to start at the beginning, is managing the friction by being a leader that supports that diversity. She has also talked about the 3 levels of global mindset of inclusive leadership, and her one was intelligence, psychological, and sociological. Intelligence is what can be taught. The psychologicals is, do I care? Do I have a passion for diversity? I think that is very, very key. I think it's very important. There's days where it's hard to wake up and go to work, especially if you've got a kid that needs to graduate and isn't, and showing them that you do care, give them on a pat on the back, letting them smile, let them relax, but also being like, you gotta do the work. The one thing about the video, though, is that she has these 3 levels, and it's intellectual, psychological, and social. Somehow, I don't know if it's on purpose or she didn't realize it, the social got cut off. The social leader is, and so I just took it with the social, I kind of synapsed it within the rating, and is a leader that is not just managing, they're also doing. So they're socializing within their grouping, within their teamworks. Even though that they're that leader and they're on the high mark, they are the ones that they are the ones that are going to be in the trenches with them. Even though the workers are going to work for them, the leader themselves is going to be doing a lot of the dirty work, trying to get where they need to so their group can go. I feel that when I'm teaching quite a bit, talking to the principal, researching, doing a lot of different things. Okay. The next one is an article about diversity. And it is from Stanford Online. And it was an interesting one because it was about more so of not having or having a diverse team, but it also gave a lot of statistics, which I like to see. From the article, they said that, and it's 5 ways to build a diverse, inclusive leadership team. The diverse team of varying racial, ethnic makeup. What they said is it financially is better. It has a competitive edge. People have different feeders. They can have better connections. There's an experience of less turnover, and I didn't quite understand, but I think it's more benefits, because if you have a diverse group, you're going to have more wants for your employees. So, inclusive leadership within school. I thought this was interesting, and I don't know if this stat is, half the students in the US are of color, and a majority of those that are of color live in the urban setting. And unfortunately, and this is time and time and time again, those urban settings not because of the ethnicity or race of the individual, is socioeconomical and equal. I worked at a school, 61% Hispanic, and I worked at another one that was 75% Black or African American. I'm sorry. That each of those had over 95% free or reduced school lunches. And for some reason, coming to more of a rural setting or a suburbia tends to be more of a white Caucasian descent. It is changing, but when you're an inclusive leader, you have to take those within. One of the big pushes at the urban schools is having leaders that reflect this diversity of the community. There are much more female teachers, especially in the sciences and math. There hardly used to be any. Now I think it's about half, so that is a sign that it's changing. But when you're in a setting like this, where you have a diverse group of students, it's really not fair for them to have basically an all white or all Black background. Going back to the school that was 61% Hispanic, it was really important for them to have an individual that they look like, that they could relate to, that they could speak Spanish to, that had the same background, coming from Cuba on a boat, or as many of our students had come from Mexico or Guatemala. So it's very important so that they can relate to the students. With that, I have a different international background of military, so I could relate, but not all the way. When they were talking about with the groupings, they focused on racial and ethnic diversity at the leadership level. It was a nonprofit organization that supported the education. 33% saw it as a core value, 31% had official definitions, and 20% had a budget for that diversity. So for me, this was kind of interesting that there was actual studies to say that they had interplayed this, that it was important for these organizations to have a diversity as a core value. And this was a nonprofit, but when you're dealing with nonprofits, it's usually because you have a diverse background. But one thing that they did mention is that the team members of color dropped off after the director's level. And I think that's, I don't want to say affirmative action, but it may be that there are more companies that are wanting to do affirmative action just so that they can have a more diverse background. And I'm going to have to cut it off here pretty soon to get the time, and I'll make another video. Most educationals believe that there's an importance of diversity. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to make a new one because I don't want to cut this off right here.